What's up, everybody? John Eric Poli here with my MMA news, and today's guest will be making their UFC debut this weekend, UFC 284. Thanks for joining me today on Fight Week, Jack Jenkins. Jack, thank you for being here, man. Really appreciate the time. It's nice to see you. I'm looking forward to this debut as well. I know we've been doing this since the Contender series, so really looking forward to following this journey along here.
Thank you. Yeah, good to be back on. Good to speak to you. I know we said we would probably catch up before Perth last time I spoke to you, so it's good to get it in.
Yeah, man, definitely. And let's start with it being the debut. Just how excited are you, man? Like, has it all sunk in that you are here? You're in the UFC. This is for real?
Yeah, I think it's sunk in. The one thing it's felt the camp itself and even the fight week, and we're water loading and cutting weight and that stuff now. It all feels exactly the same for me. Like it feels no different. My coaches are still the same. I've got the same guys here with me who have been with me at the start and through Contender series and stuff. So it's just more of the same, but it just feels, like it I feel like I belong here without you know, I need to prove, to myself that I do belong here, and you can only do that in the ring. But as far as just the vibe of being in the hotel and being around all the UFC staff and stuff, I feel like I belong here and I put in the work to get here. So happy to be here.
So, a lot of natural feelings, but any nerves? Or are you somebody that doesn't really get nervous too much?
No, not outside of the normal. Every now and then you catch yourself thinking about the fight. I'm pretty good now at just bringing my focus onto things I can control in the here and now. So, I find myself thinking too much about the fight. I just think about specifics about it, like do your jab, move your feet, things that coaches tell you, and then I sort of just get out of that zone pretty quick.
And what's it mean for you two to get to experience this first UFC experience at home in Australia? I'm sure that's got to be, for any Australian fighter, it's kind of like one of that, like a bucket list goal to get the fight in Australia. You get to do it in your first UFC outing. What's that mean to you? Like family, friends, everybody going to be there for it?
Yeah, well, like it's a pretty big trip over to Perth from Melbourne. Like it would be the equivalent of going from New York to LA for you guys. Um, but I think there's about 250 people coming from my hometown. So it's pretty big to have that many people coming to support me, and I'm really gracious for that. It's going to be huge over here. But for me, I don't know if it feels necessarily like a hometown fight. There's aspects of it that are more familiar than the US, for example, but there's also aspects that are quite new and unfamiliar. My hometown fight will be the Melbourne one. My first one in Melbourne, that will be the real sort of feeling for me that I'm fighting in front of the home crowd.
And you mentioned with the travel, like with Melbourne and everything, right? I think you compared it for us in the States, New York City to LA. Well, I can tell you right now, like for anybody that's going to be stepping on a plane to do stuff like that, like, oh God, this flight's going to be forever, and they'd be rolling their eyes. For you, that's nothing, I feel like, for a fight because you guys are so used to having to do the whole visa thing and then traveling internationally over here, all the layovers that go into it, all that's behind you. How nice is it to not really have to travel like you normally have to for a fight?
Yeah, so nice. It's nice not to worry about visas and passports. You just jump on the flight with no idea or anything. You just get across the country. So it's as far as prep goes for a UFC debut, I've landed on my feet.
All right, so I have one question that's not fight related, but because you brought up Melbourne, I have to ask. I used to say I'm a closet tennis fan. At this point, it's pretty out in the open that I am a tennis fan. I absolutely love watching. I know Australian Open is in Melbourne. There, did you ever get to go to the Australian Open and take the whole tennis scene in, or do you not even like tennis at all?
No, I used to watch the tennis when I was a kid. I wouldn't have gone to this one just because I don't have too much time training. But I've my problem with the Australian Open this year was that my since I moved to an apartment closer to the gym, my running route that I do most nights is on Melbourne Park. It's right where Rod Laver Arena is and where the Open is. So they shut off all the side streets and stuff that I usually run down. So I was just always running through crowds of people for the whole 2 weeks that the Australian Open was on. So my only experience with the Open this year was me whinging to myself because I had to run through crowds of people instead of the nice quiet night runs I usually get.
Yeah, I'm sure that could definitely be a pain. I guess one other tennis question for you before we get on to the rest of this fight related stuff here. I know tennis players are usually pretty good with fans and everything. Do you have any cool stories of meeting any professional tennis players, or did you never get to really meet anybody?
No, I've never really met any tennis players, to be honest. None. I wish I had a cool story for you, but no tennis players.
Okay, so no bumping elbows with Novak Djokovic or Roger Federer or
No,
anybody like that. But
I would like to have, but I just haven't.
yeah, obviously that would have been a really cool experience. But I'm sure one of these times maybe you'll bump into somebody like that when they're in town for the Australian Open. But anyway, let's get back to some fight stuff here. Let's talk training camp right now. Obviously, camp is all wrapped up. You're putting just the final touches on everything before fight night now. How did the hard stuff of your training camp, that big heavy bulk session of it, how did all that go for you?
Yeah, really, really good. I got the notice for this fight obviously with a full camp. I got the last one on 6 weeks notice. So this one to find out 12 weeks out that the fight was locked was huge. And then we were able to periodize the camp properly. We did our volume phase, sort of a strength phase, and then went through our intensity phases and then sort of the hard sparring for the last few weeks. So we've been really meticulous with it, and I've got lots of time on the pads. I got lots of sparring rounds in, and my grappling really leveled up, I think, as well. So, yeah, at the end of Sunday, it's all on me because I've had a great camp. No injuries that are significant, nothing like that. It's just got to show up and do the job.
All right, let's talk about your opponent now here a little bit. Just what have you seen out of him and what are you expecting on fight night? And how do you see this whole fight playing out?
Look, he's going to probably try and come forward, and he's twitchy, very like old school Frankie Edgar esque in the way he moves. I think he's gonna throw overhands and move around a little bit, throw some inside kicks, and once we start to strike a little bit, I think he's really going to start shooting hard and on the singles and doubles, and there'll be a few exchanges in the clinch, and then from there I'm going to start to take over, and I just get to go out there and have fun for this one. There's no pressure in terms of the contender series to get the finish or be a certain way, so I can just go out there and be really pure in what I want to do. So wherever the fight goes, I'm just going to try and put the pressure on him, go to the body, do work there, and then see if I can find a way to finish the fight.
And as you're saying all that and doing a breakdown of your opponent and everything, I have to ask this question too, because I did see it in the Instagram bio. You do have in there one trick pony, which of course is coming from the Contender series, where Dana kind of made the comment afterwards and was a little hesitant if he wanted to give you a contract and everything. So, with that being said, is there a chip on the shoulder for this fight a little bit for you, just the way how the whole Contender series thing happened? And I know there was a lot that went into that too, with there was travel, I know there was some visa issues for you and everything, but still, is there a chip on the shoulder just because of those comments that were made?
No, not necessarily. I've always got a chip on my shoulder. Like I've always got a point to prove. I think the way I fight, I find that my best headspace is when I've got something to prove. But in terms of style or something, like, do I have to prove that I'm going to strike this fight or anything like that? There's nothing like that. When I rewatched the fight back against Freddie on the Contender, it was a 10-8 or a 10-9 in the first. It was a 10-8 in the second, and then a finish in the third. So by any other measurement, that's a great performance. So if I can emulate that fight again on Sunday, I'll be wrapped. You know what I mean? I'm going out there to win. The anything else is just superfluous.
And are you and Dana, I guess, cool after all those comments? You don't have any problems, or do you plan on, after you
No,
get the
no.
win, maybe making a little bit, throw a little shade at him there, just a little bit?
Look. There'll be a bit of banter, I'm sure. I've got no issue throwing a bit of banter around. But even when we went out the back immediately after that fight, we spoke and we were cool then. Like he obviously runs the show, and I thought if you had just watched that fight, I think I hit the same inside trip in that fight like 3 or 4 times. So it would, and then I sat in half guard for the majority of the 15 minutes we were in there. So if you just watch that fight and that fight only, then it's probably a fair comment to say one trick pony. But yeah, like you said, I get a chance to over my whole career, I get the chance now to prove that comment wrong.
Yeah, and you get to, make your big first impression, all the UFC fans on a massive stage too. And obviously the massive stage all centered around Alexander Volkanovski and Islam Makhachev in the main event. It's going to be a fun one to watch. I know everybody's all amped up for it with champ versus champ there. I just want to get your thoughts on that main event and how you see things playing out.
Yeah, I think Alex wins. I think Alex has been overlooked from the start. Even when he came into the UFC, he was overlooked a little bit, and now the same thing's kind of happening. And people are kind of talking about this fight like it's a foregone conclusion, and even the bookmakers are thinking that. But Alex is a little bit different, so I think it's going to be a tough fight for Islam.
All right, and the other thing I have to ask too about this fight card, there are a ton of Australians on it. Are you guys expecting a big Australian domination? Everybody comes away with victories, and it's just a whole big moment for Australian MMA over there?
Yeah, look, I hope the boys that I know and that have come up on the scene at the same time as me all go out there and do really well. We have a little bit of camaraderie, just not so from any kind of patriotism. It's more from the fact that we all came up on the same shows on Hex and Eternal and these other shows, and we knew each other then. So, you kind of have an understanding of what each of them have gone through to get here. So that's why I'm cheering for those boys. Not because they're my countrymen, just because they've been through the same shit as me.
All right, Jack. Thanks again, man, for all the time. Really appreciate it. I'm gonna let you take off. I know you have a lot to get to here. You're getting ready to go to bed here tonight before you really take in the full fight week festivities. So enjoy it, man. It's gonna be a great experience for your UFC debut. Can't wait to see it. And just want to thank all the fans out there that watched today's interview. If you guys like today's interview with Jack, make sure to go to the bottom, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to this YouTube channel if you haven't done so already, and make sure you guys are keeping your tabs on MyMMANews.com. Go to our social media pages, give us a like and a follow on there as well. We'll see you later, everybody.